Hello to everybody. My name is Jesus Estrada, and I'm going to use the microphone.
Jesus,
Tell me.
give them 5 minutes. Just
Okay.
give them 5 minutes
Okay.
more.
It has no battery, so it will be difficult to use it. Well, 5 minutes. What time is it? Because I have yeah. Okay. So thank you to attend to this workshop. This is the leaflet of the project, so feel free to have one. Many of the things that I'm going to explain are also shown in this leaflet and also in our webpage. Please visit us in our URL. It's www.smartopendata.eu. Also, we have a Twitter profile. We try to update it as much as possible. And also has a LinkedIn profile. So please feel free to visit us. In this presentation, I'm the coordinator of this project. It's an FP7 project, and also we come with the presence of some of the partners of the project. Specifically, we are going to speak about 2 or 3 pilots, and also we are going to show a general overview about the project, and specifically why are we here, why are we using INSPIRE data, and in another sense, in another area, why are not using INSPIRE data. So I think that we could begin. This is the agenda of the presentation. So we are going to begin with the SmartOpenData project. What's the aim of the SmartOpenData project? This project is not going to create new data sets, because our idea is that there are a lot of information that we could use. So the idea is to create infrastructure that is going to use existing data sets. This data set is mainly related with biodiversity and natural environment. This is the whole title of the project, SmartOpenData, linked open data for environment protection in smart regions. Specifically in the Spanish pilot, the data will be related with natural data sets and biodiversity and protection of nature. One of the aims of the project will be to create service that could be used finally for small and medium enterprises. This is one of the main objectives of the project. We have 5 demonstration pilots that currently they are starting their tasks. And one of the main objectives of the project is to fill this gap. The gap between the geospatial data bodies or organisms and the people who know about link open data. This gap, this relation has been mentioned in the previous workshop. So this is one of the main objectives of the project, to create bridge between these different areas, the spatial data, information, and linked open data. As I have explained previously, the main of this information is available in our web page. This is the consortium, and we have here partners from CCSS, from WTC. I came from Tragsa, and from where is Portugal? Yeah, the south area of the territory. We have 16 partners in the consortium, and we are very widely distributed around Europe. We have partners from Norway, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Spain, Italy, Ireland. This is an overview about the pilots that we are implementing. After this speech, we are going to present information about Spain and Portugal, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic. All of them are very deeply interconnected. There is a strong links between them because, for example, the data that we are going to use in Portugal is about the water management, drinking water, but also this information is going to be used in the pilot that we are developing in Sicily, in Italy. Also, the Czech Republic pilot is related with forest sustainability, and the Spanish pilot will be, as we will see after in a few minutes, is specifically devoted to the treatment about the forest information. And before speak about the pilots, I'm going to give the turn to one of the partners.
How many of you were in the previous session in this room? Okay, let's forget that then. We covered it in the previous. So for people who weren't in the room, I'll give a slight recap. The reason W3C is interested in this work is because we want to try and make the web a better place for geospatial data than it currently is. The web was always conceived when Tim Berners-Lee conceived it 25 years ago this year. OGC's been telling you that they're 20 years old this year. That's true. They are. So is my organisation. So is W3C. We're both very similar organisations in many ways. Similar sort of size. They have slightly more members than we do. We have a lot more standards than they do, and so on. But the basic thing is much the same. But the web was conceived originally not as a place where you share a document from one place to another. It was always conceived as a place for linking people and places and ideas and definitions and yes documents and yes places. Something I've discovered over the past 6 months since I've been looking at this area here, there are different ways of thinking. As I understand it, and I'm learning this and I sort of look back in horror, when I see that, as I understand it, in the geospatial world, you make no distinction between the real place and the data about it. That's a cardinal sin on the web. An identifier is for a mountain, not for a document about the mountain. That's a different identifier. That's a different thing altogether. So differences in culture. So Smart Open Data for us is a vehicle for spending time thinking about geospatial, learning about what we need to do and how we need to make the web a more friendly place for geospatial and how we can help geospatial community reach more people. The web is a pretty darn impressive place. It's interactive. You can program it. You can update it. You can do all sorts of stuff with it. It's graphics. It's video. It's text. It's styling. It's colors. It's shapes. The things you can do on this really powerful platform that is universally available to 30% of the population of the planet. We spend a lot of time actually worrying about the other 70%. We have another organization called the World Wide Web Foundation that spends a lot of time thinking about the 70% who've never been anywhere near an online connection of any kind. And we spend time thinking about accessibility so that everybody, including people with visual impairments, physical impairments, whatever it may be, can benefit from the web. So geospatial has to fit into that somehow. So, as a standards body, we wanted to do some work on it. We got together, we ran a workshop last March, yada, yada, yada. We end up today here discussing in this room detailed plans for what's going to happen about that. And the plan, for those who, again, who weren't here, will be we, W3C, will work with them, the OGC, who we quite like and get on with, you know, they're okay. And we're going to have a joint working group. And that joint working group can only happen because of this project. But what's the point? What's the point in having a working group? What's the point in trying to make the web world and geospatial world come together, since there are very, very few problems that geospatial people have that you haven't already solved? Why do you need to talk to us? When we're on the web, why do we need to bother about this other world? Because we can do everything we can do perfectly well. It's to try and enrich those things. And the data is, the web is full of data, and we want to try and put those two things together so that a geospatial person can make use of this data that's available on the web, and a web person can understand location better. To do that, we need specific use cases. We need pilots. We need real use cases where real people have real problems who couldn't care less about whether it's GML or KML or GeoJSON. Who the hell cares? My problem is I've got to organize the water catchment area for this part of Portugal, or got to know where I've got to plant my seeds on my land, or whatever it may be. Those are the real use cases. And SmartOpenData gives us those real use cases that we're going to be working on during the project. And the end result of this work is not to create a geosparkle endpoint. The end of the project is to solve a real problem in the real world, like the ones that Jesus is about to tell us about.
So I'm going to present you what are the real problems that the Spanish pilot is trying to solve. And they are very interesting because, I don't know, I know the things that I have studied previously, the things that I know, but when you know things about the business that other people do, it could be very, very, very fascinating, because there are things that are very, very interesting. What could offer this kind of technology, this kind of new tools to things like the agroforestry management? There are two main questions that this pilot tried to answer, and they are very important, and they are very amazing. They are very strange for people that are directly involved with forests, with trees. It could be very, very important. In this pilot, we have also devoted time about establish links between data from Spain and also data from Portugal. So this specific pilot is called in the project the Spanish-Portuguese pilot. But this kind of links have to be established better during the lifetime of the project. What we are trying to do about this specific pilot, about the agroforestry management, we need to answer this specific question for the farmers. For example, this question was very, very strange for me. Do you know that there are stallion trees? How many? Is the first time that you hear that? Maybe yes. So, for example, you have a parcel. There is a specific tree that is the most suitable for you. For example, if you want to grow hazelnut, there is a specific tree that is the better for you, and it will depend on your soil characteristic, your physical characteristic, chemical, temperature, rain, this kind of information. And also, if there is a best specimen, there is a best tree for you, of course, it's not going to be free. This kind of individuals are very, very controlled by the administration. And it's not easy to get the seed. So the farmer needs to know where is the best seeds for him or for her, and if it is possible to take them, because it's not free it's not possible to take the seeds whenever you want. This is the two questions that we want to answer as the first stage in this pilot. But as you can see, they are related with physical circumstances. We are related with biology, with temperature, but also we have very important questions related with legal aspects and administrative issues. This is our next step. This is the first use cases that we have described in our document. But also we have more questions that we want to see answered in this project. This is the main schema of the thing that we want to do in this project. What are we doing right now? For example, if you were previously in the previous workshop, Phil answered me a question. And it's very interesting because it's related specifically with this slide. Do we need to use link open data for answer this question? We are going to see the data sets, the data models, and maybe you could obtain the same answer that I have obtained previously by myself. Currently, we are working in this pilot, establishing the relations, or maybe translating the raw data that, for example, my company Tragsa has a lot of information. We are not public administration, but we are a public body. We are not the owner of the data, but we are the keeper. So we have full access to a lot of information, like common agriculture policy information. We have all the information about all parcels in Spain. It's a very huge amount of data. They are raw data. And we are right now currently establishing the relations and the link between the different data. Well, we are in the SPIRE conference, and there is a step that we want to do, of course, but as Angel explained not all data are INSPIRE components. So, in this first step, we are working with the data as they are. But during the project, we will try to make them INSPIRE components. So we are establishing a direct link between the raw data and the linked data. This is the current step that the Spanish pilot is living right now. And this is the information about the Spanish pilot, and Angel is going to explain us something about INSPIRE in the pilot.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angel Lopez, and I've been working in GRC for 3 years in data specifications, and now I'm working with Tragsa, trying to implement this INSPIRE data specification for real life. So when you start working in this issue, it's funny because we are talking about use cases when all data specifications are plenty of use cases. Most of them will be closely related with the topics you are dealing with in this pilot. So somehow part of the work is already done, and we have been discussing even link connection between different thematic areas, how to link the data, where are the connections. potential use cases, potential communities that could be interested in all this kind of data. So I think all this work should be reused in trying to start a discussion in this sense. Well, and they start, at this point I refer to the Spanish pilot. First step was to define the scope of the pilot, where it was the community, the principal aims to be solved during the pilot. And the second step was to discover the data sources they need to start working to build upon this data. And INSPIRE was there because most of the data sets that they were using were closely related with INSPIRE. And the question was, okay, if we have to transform all this data because we are in somehow the owners of this data, we have to start working because we have the mandate to start transforming this data from the original data source into INSPIRE. Is this work somehow connected? We have overlapping efforts. Where is the connection? Okay, somehow the best way is okay. If we are able to transform the data into INSPIRE data compliant, probably will be easier later on start building this link between different data sources. This is all the different data sources that they consider that they could use for the pilot. Natura 2000, Ramsar, protected areas, and all different information from all different INSPIRE that could be related with INSPIRE. So all information closely related with buildings, with geographical regions, habitat and biotopes, species distribution, and so on. So all this data set, the original data set, should be transformed sooner or later into INSPIRE data compliant. So this is the Tragsa is using ArcGIS in order to transform some of the data model. This is part of the work that we are starting to do. This is the discussion around because implementing INSPIRE is also a discussion on itself. We need to start discussing how to transform the data set you have into the INSPIRE data compliant data set. So there is discussion, is this data set compliant, is this format compliant, we are able to transform this or not. So the discussion is also in this point. But once once you start working, you can start solving different issues, different problems, and you can go ahead with this transformation. And this effort, again, should be reused in other projects or initiatives. This is part of the work that has been done in this direction. We have information about land cover, about all things related with LPs, which in Spain is called SIGTAG. It's an application that is available on the web. So different elements that could be potentially quite useful for this pilot. This is an example. So we start transforming this information that is in SIGTAG into INSPIRE data compliant format. All this terminology, for example, is terminology that is included in these LPs. That is also, it was also reused on different data specification in agricultural and in other areas. So we are somehow reusing terminology and trying to implement connection between things. And this is all the mess that we need to solve when we start implementing INSPIRE. Because you have all the information that is already in the SIGTAG application, in the Spanish data set. You have the LP's recommendations, and you have INSPIRE data models, and discussion is around how to start connecting things, how this entity is this one is this, the other one, this term means this term means the other term. And for example, in this context, in the LPs, which is part of this pilot, I think it's one of the most important parts of the pilot because it's the information about the farmer and the parcel in which he is planning to plant different species. There is a completely different way to represent this across Europe. Sometimes it's a cadastral parcel, sometimes it's for physical growth, otherwise it's an agricultural parcel. So there are many different ways how to resolve the connection between different entities in different data sets and in different contexts. So we are working in this INSPIRE data on planning, and Jesus will explain how to mix this with that.
Maybe I just want to transmit just one simple idea. As you can see, I'm going to call this Skype. Have you realized about the complexity of the data sets? We are using data sets that I don't know how many tables are there. I don't know. For example, in the forestry inventory, maybe between main tables and auxiliary tables, 150 barrels. It's the size of the problem. This kind of data tables, this kind of data could be used and could be, the information could be extracted using just common query. Oh yes, of course. But I don't want to know how many joins I will need to apply. The main point is, because for example, when I speak with the people that is directly involved with the semantic part of the project, they always said, don't expect so much. There is no magic. At first, it was very disappointing to me, but at least I really have understood the main point. The main point is the information is right there. The information is there. Maybe it's not easy to extract it. For example, the question is, the two main questions that have been arising in the Spanish pilot could be used with the current technology without using complex data? Maybe yes. Maybe no. Yes, of course yes. But we know that there are more complex questions that really need this new technology and these new tools. So as first step, we are going to use common queries that could be very big complex, that could be solved using the technology that we have. But please think about the size of the data. We are using a lot of information. As it's not easy to obtain the information that is really there. We are in this step. No, we are going to reach next step in a few months. I expect about harmonization of data, and we are going to use INSPIRE for that in order to harmonize data. We are using this direct link between main data and raw data because we have to start. The Spanish pilot has to start the generation of results, but this is the proper way that will be used, of course, during the project lifetime. This is the main idea of this slide. Is there are a lot of information, and we know that it's possible to answer complex questions using the current information, but we have to know how to obtain this information. Because we have a lot of information about the human activities related with the land parcel, with the parcel, which are the physical condition, the chemical condition, the soil characteristic, and all of this information could help us in order to decide which is the best crop for my parcel. This is not an easy question to answer. I don't know Many of them know something about how to work in a farm, but it's not easy to decide which is the best crop for you. And also it could be also constraint related with administrative and legal issues. This is also a very important issue, sorry. This is for example, this is a very small information about the data set that I'm currently using. This is about the Spanish forestry inventory. For example, typically you can get information about the species, the density of the. There's a lot of fields that are very important in order to decide, in order to answer the question that the people who is working on this kind of business, they need this information in order to answer the question. For example, the LPs always is involved in this information, the type of property. Using all of this information, we can obtain also more useful information. And before conclusion, I'm going to the different pilots. We have several partners of the project, and they are going to present their specific pilots in order to have a more wider point of view.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to present to you Czech Republic Forest Inventory Pilot. I'm from Forest Management Institute. Our organization has several branch offices very well distributed across Czech Republic. It's because we need to be near to the big forests and to cover all Czech Republic with our field workers. As you can see, we've been also partners in Habitats project and other humble and I will now a little bit explain the forest and National Forest Inventory. It's based on network which has a random starting point. We have 4 levels of network. You can see 2. This is 2 kilometers of cell, and inside is half hopping. It's 2 kilometers and half kilometers cell. In every cell there is a randomly generated plot which is observed by some type of person. These are generated in 2 kilometers cell, and it's the data from this plot is collected from field worker, and these are from photogrammetric operators. This is the base concept of all national forest inventories in Europe. We are in European National Forest Inventory Network organization or group. As you can see in the field, workers has to measure several statistics about forest, about trees in some perimeter. We can access approximately 20,000 plots in 4 years or in 5 years. also our group, we have 6 operators with 3D glasses. They also can measure and feel information about the pods. They can see on infrared stereo pairs, orthophoto pairs. As you can see, the difference between photos in visible infrared and RGB spectrum. Here, difference between forest types. You can see the different data. So we are in forestry. We are mainly using these infrared photos. At this time in 2000, we have this coverage of the Republic of what's okay, this is another input to the National Forest Inventory. It's from remote sensing and other secondary automatic aerial photo products which are done in recognition, like segmentation of the forest or normalized digital surface model. We can, for example, in this normalized digital surface model, we can compare digital elevation model and digital surface model, and then calculate total stocks of the forest. This scheme represents how we would like to present the National Forest Inventory in SmartOpenData project, and also using open data. We have, as I said, we have 3 sources which are collected and checked and pushed to database. There we have to go through several steps, geostatistics, and somehow process the data. And after the calculations, we will create database for results. This database is open for the public, and there are information about or aggregations of our data to some regions in the Czech Republic. The formats for the results can be HTML, CSV, or I hope sometimes RDF. We are now in the second phase of National Forest Inventory. First phase end up with let's say old way of presenting data. It's only one star because we presented some PDF with graphs and maps and some not well shaped HTML tables. So I think it's not enough for the huge amount of source data we possess. I think the main shape or type of our outputs are like value and the confidence interval around the value, how it's like this is the I think testing RDF. We tried to somehow build. As you can see, it's not for us difficult to add the value and the maximum and minimum bounds of the value, but somehow link it to another sources in Europe, which can be for us partners on same level. We have a lot of RDF initiatives or open catalog databases, but I think for public body it's not good to have Wikipedia or something which is not authoritatively. Okay, we have a lot of experiences with open source. Several years we are working with 6 years we are working with PostgreSQL database and PostGIS and other open source products. So it's very well. It's good to work with these products, but we have no experiences with the linked open data world open source products like D2IQ, Geo and others. We tested some, but I think, or I don't know if they are prepared for production. This is my question. If you can help me, which authorities we can use, because especially we are mostly using NATS regions. For us, that's the region or the aggregation area, which is where we calculated our estimate. So it's difficult to find some endpoint for our linkage. That's all.
Yeah, I think first of all, is there some direct feedback from your side, either to what was already said before or also to the questions raised by Jan? If no, maybe. Oh yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, just a remark about Virtuoso and your question about whether it's exploitable. We are using it in the project in GeoCloud. So on a platform on the cloud, we are using Virtuoso since 2 years, and we are very happy with the tool because we have 2 billion of tuples inside. It's quite okay.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for encouragement, because really we are now in the phase where we are about to finishing the overview of the scene, which tools are available, and we are really putting first hands-on on some of those technologies presented just now, and any feedback and experience like you just expressed is very valuable for us, because really we have limited time, like said by Jesus, there are just 2 years now, even less, and within that time we would like to really deliver some tangible outcomes. And with that, I'd like to share with you these 3 bulleted points, and actually maybe I will change a bit the order. So yeah, I will finish the presentation of the pilot from Slovakia, so just to be on the same line. Yeah, so what we are planning to do on our side, for us, we have 2 challenges which we want to address under the umbrella of this project. First one is really to answer the question how we can as easily as possible to help users to search and find some geospatial content either on the infrastructure built on top of the SDI principles, as well as some geospatial content made available through the linked data technologies. So the first pilot, now we call it sort of spatial web crawler, is really trying to
to address these expectations, because as was already expressed in many presentations and discussions within the last 2 days, on one hand, it's difficult really to find what you are exactly looking for. Sometimes you put just sort of keyword to the any search engine, and on one side you will get almost no records which fills to your expectations. On the other hand, you can get really thousands of records, and then it's very difficult to find the proper one amongst them. The second pilot is more focused on some evidence how to make available the spatial data from environmental domain. We as an environmental agency have certain responsibility, or somehow we have possibility to transform this data and to provide some applications showing users how actually they can combine both the data from the SDI infrastructure together with the data from Ring Data world in some one common user graphical interface, and on top of it to really to put some concrete use case showing how this data can be used to address some concrete expectation. So yeah, here in brief there is some indication what is the porcine architecture we are planning to deploy. There are on it's a vertical level. There are 4 underlying use cases which we want to demonstrate through these 2 subpilots. The first one is really to actually get hands how to create this link data out of what we have so far. The second use case is really to support this crawler pilot to support the discovery of available spatial resources. The third one is really to show actually how you can display the content you were able to find through your queries, ideally through classical web browser interface. And the last one is really focused on this mashup application. We used to call the term mashup because some time ago, I think it was 4 years ago, there was an initiative driven by the Joint Research Center where in one of the previous INSPIRE conferences the stakeholders were asked to show some evidence actually how there can be mash up some INSPIRE data to some concrete use case, and our colleagues with the colleagues from the Austrian Environmental Agency, they managed to create a so-called biodiversity mashup app. It was simple web viewer where users were able to link 2 data sets from 2 countries, and these data sets were served as a WFS through the WFS service. And in addition to that, these data sets were linked with some existing encyclopedia related to the spatial to the species description. So here are some standards, some technologies we are planning to put on place, and on the end of our effort, yeah, we want to get some real RDF stuff out of what we have currently under the access. And what is also important, we would like to use also existing technologies, like I would like to highlight, for example, the one mentioned in this part of the this part of the schema, where particularly for the metadata, we would like to be nearby of this movement behind the open data, behind these open data portals. For that reason, we are planning to deploy this DCAN instance of the Drupal to see how we can somehow customize this solution and use it for this purpose. Plus, what is for us quite big challenge is to find some available tool sets which will allow us to merge these 2 types of currently different spatial content through one web interface. There are some candidates. We are testing them, and we will see which maybe we will be happy also to get some feedback from you if you are aware about some visualization interfaces which could be used for this kind of pilot. It could be very useful. So I'm not sure if it was very easy to explain in these few minutes what we are planning to achieve, but just to summarize, this first pilot, we want to support the discovery of the spatial content across those two platforms. With the second one, really to show some sort of evidence how the linked spatial data together with the data made available through the INSPIRE infrastructure can be used for some concrete use case. Actually, I forgot to mention that use case is foreseen to be this time dedicated to two cases. First one is really to support the citizens to actually locate some phenomena in their neighborhood. These phenomena are of two types. First one is really to be able to display and provide users to show some protected and valuable areas in the area they are interested in. Plus, on the other hand, we are trying to provide some possibility to display to those users, mainly to the citizens, some potential threats for the area there. For example, if they are planning to buy some parcel in some region, they will be able to see if there are some contaminated sites or some areas which can actually influence on these kind of decisions. So with that, I would close this pilot part for Slovakia. I would be very happy if some of you, think it even makes sense to spend time to this direction, or even if you see something very critical, we should really now hear from your side and maybe adjust our plans. So yeah, that's my first question. Whether you think this type of pilots make sense. So any hints, any opinions? Okay. Maybe yeah.
Yes.
Maybe there is not enough information. So yeah, please. Yeah, please go ahead. Okay.
this, I suppose. No.
Maybe it's enough, just pause it.
Okay. We deal with different subjects from a government point of view, and we also have to provide data to the government, obviously in the first place to the government activities like cadastre and all the geographical territorial information, namely also the land use related to the Kyoto Protocol intake, carbon intake, and things like that. Well, there's somehow a straight link between the different pilots in terms of data usability and metadata profiles within the metadata that we have to fulfill to be INSPIRE compliant, okay? And the priority, okay.
Just to react, definitely there are two aspects I think it's necessary to mention in your comment. First one is very important what Jesus said, that we would be happy to create some meaningful connection between the pilots to actually show that one pilot can deliver something that can be used in another one. And the second aspect, which is really quite challenging for us, is to deliver some app which is not its destiny to end up somewhere in the shop. Really, we would like to have the app which will make some sense and to be used in real life. Because we realize as a public body we have certain limitations. We really have to say that there are certain tasks we have to fulfill because of legal requirements, but we would like to stimulate the stakeholders outside, the private sector market, NGOs market, to really provide the services, APIs, interfaces, and actually leave the floor to them to set up the market, set up the game, and hopefully also help us to deliver some added value apps which we really don't have the capacity, even the knowledge to provide to the scene, to the stakeholders, and to the society in general. So
Yes.
I fully agree. These are things which we are trying to keep in mind.
Yes.
So maybe some other question, comments? Yeah, sorry.
I don't know if this works. Does it work? Yeah, it works. Surprisingly, it works. Well, we have a large database where we've transformed all the data to RDF format to see how it works and how it will look like, how many data triplets you will have, and things like that. Then I stopped this project because this is a problem you have in addition to the problem you have to harmonize your data under INSPIRE. I love the idea that first you harmonize your data, transforming it to the INSPIRE data specification, and then you have an RDF mass of triplets out there that is harmonized too. But I didn't see anything I could do with those data after that. So I question myself if the time is right to go any further. So my decision was, for the time being, once I transformed my data into the INSPIRE format, then to transform it further into the RDF, and then leave it out there somewhere, waiting for somebody to pick them up and do something with them. And what they could do with them could be something like a crawler or something like that, and any further project or product that they could create. But I didn't think it was my job to do that.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this, I think, very important observation that, sometimes it's very difficult to set up what is expected from the public sector and what should be the role of the other players on the scene. And I think this is quite important evidence that even if some public body will express that, yes, we made what was minimum expected and needed from our side, but then leave it up to the others. They have to ensure that the quality licensing is as it should be, clear for those who are planning to build something on top of it. but then let's leave it on the market. Yeah, in that sense. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Again, I've managed a project that dealt somehow with the same kind of problematics, which is called in GeoClouds. Just to answer you, we have had some data providers who did the exercise as well. To put to generate RDF data from their usual data model that they use for their web applications usually. So if you want to discuss with me about why they did that and how it helped in fulfilling INSPIRE recommendations, you can come and discuss with me, and I will show you the use cases that we have been developed in this project. I think it's also valuable for your project because I think there are a lot of overlapping. So we might discuss about that. So, and personally, I think that the exercise is worth doing it because, as you say, it's a good idea to put your data in a standardized format in a RDF triple store, even if you don't know yet how it going to be used. Because maybe the private sector or maybe some other actors will find some new services around that. So I think it's worth the effort in a way.
Thanks a lot. Definitely, I would like to share some chat after the workshop with you. Yeah, please.
I'd just like to respond to the point on what's the point, why do you do it, and who uses it. I don't want to take up too much time, but I'll share the basics of a study that I did on behalf of I did with others, I should emphasize, on behalf of the ISA program that's been coming up in various conversations in the last couple of days. If you've looked at linked data at all, you've probably seen the 5 stars of linked data, which is a way of expressing how useful data is. Jan said that the data he was putting out was mostly 1 star. It's a PDF, so a human has to read it or whatever. And it goes through up until you get to the 5 stars, which is full-blown RDF linked data linked to other stuff. And the ISA program asked us to have a look at, well, surely if 5-star data takes more effort to create, which it does, and therefore it's more valuable, which arguably it is, therefore more people will use it, won't they? And so show me the multiple apps that have been built based on this 5-star data, which are more numerous than the apps built on 3-star data. And that's where the argument falls down, because it ain't true by a long way. Furthermore, when we spoke to 15 different public sector bodies who have produced linked data, including the Ordnance Survey in the UK, and we spoke to the BBC, who use a lot of linked data, which is not open, but they do use it. We spoke to the FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization. We spoke to the German National Library, and so on. And what we found there was, in every case, the real benefit from the linked data approach was to the people themselves. The organization itself benefited from it. Where there was an existing relationship between one organization and another, such as the European Environment Agency and the FAO, those organizations found it easier to share data and to accept data from each other as linked data than the old mechanism of emailing across an Excel spreadsheet. And that again actually comes up in a completely different field, which is in product and logistics of things. So a standards body that's twice as old as either OGC or W3C is one you've almost certainly never heard of, called GS1. And GS1 are the people who give identifiers to products and individual things that you and I see as barcodes. They're the company behind barcodes. They're a very, very rich 3.5 million member standards body, and they're turning all those little barcode numbers, which they would call a GTIN number, GTIN, into URIs. So for every barcode, there'll be a URI on the web. Why is that useful? Well, it's useful if you're the manufacturer and you're shipping them out to something else. It's an RFID tag on the web, and it helps you put that data online. So, how do you make your data useful? Well, who's it useful to? Another, again, not relevant to today, but a classic example of the use of linked data is a web service called legislation.gov.uk. And legislation.gov.uk has encoded in XML every piece of legislation passed in Britain since 1247, and the metadata about all those pieces of legislation encoded in RDF. And they built this very good service there, which they find useful. It's actually part of the National Archives' overall strategy of eliminating its dependence on paper. They want to get rid of paper if they can. They want to move completely to digital storage and archiving. And this legislation.gov.uk was their first service that allowed that to be true. And they find it useful. And the solicitors and law firms that use this data find it useful and pay them money and give them time to improve this service, which happens to be based on linked data, which for that particular service is the best technology available. If you're going to build a service that you really want other people to use, give them an API that sends them GeoJSON, because that's what they want. Now, you might have a system behind that that uses linked data, that creates something really clever, that makes a difficult problem easy. But what the developer wants is JSON at the end of it. So that's what he or she is going to want. But it makes the efficiency internally much easier. I'll end on a quote from the guy who runs the legislation.gov.uk website. So I said to him, so you set up this absolute shining example of 5-star linked data, and you use it in this service that everyone in my world talks about and points to as a real example of how to do it. And at the time he was building another service, which is an even better example these days, which I won't go into here. And you made available this Sparkle endpoint that anyone can grab this data and do stuff with. I said, so who uses it? He said, I don't know. I don't care either. It's not why I do it. Linked data is not always about what other people want. It's about you want. It's about making your job easier. It's about making your government department, your environment agency, and someone else's environment agency, and someone else's mapping authority easier to communicate across boundaries. And the benefit comes from the efficiency you gain from that. Outside developers, if you're counting numbers for outside developers, you're doing it wrong.
Thanks a lot, Phil. I think this also gives a quite important perception we are trying to somehow bring also in practice through this project. And really, in sake of time, just to touch this another 2 points, I would like to share with you some aspects why we see quite important to be nearby on what's going on under the INSPIRE maintenance and implementation framework. With that, may I ask you, is there someone who has no any clue what the MIC stands for? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, just really briefly, for us, MIC is some sort of follow-up of what was done so far under the INSPIRE framework. So it's an initiative mainly driven by European Commission, together with the hub of member states and stakeholders. And the main aim is to ensure that what was really defined on this legal and technical level will now be transformed in the real practice to the tangible results. For us, I mean, on behalf of the project, we are trying to see where across these work packages which creates the content of the project, we can see connection with what's going on under the INSPIRE MIC framework. And with that, we realized that it would be also great to see how we can benefit out of what will come in the near future. So here there are some basic links you can later on share to get some more information. But in principle, so far, this MIC framework was able to end up in certain structure, which is defined by 2 types of groups. First one is really policy-oriented legal permanent group, where there are those main strategic political decisions taken. And the second type of movement is called under the technical permanent group, which is trying to define this more technical and also sometimes more concrete content from the GeoICT point of view. So here you can see there were currently defined 20, even I heard this morning, 21 urgent topics which this initiative is trying to address in I think next 1 or 2 years. And with that, we realized that for some of those topics, we can have some response from the project and vice versa. So where we see the potential contribution of this project to the MIC, I think there are 4 main activities under the MIC where we think we can be of some help, hopefully. I would like to highlight for the first one, it's the activity which is trying to address this topic of persistent identifiers, and excuse me, as we are sure that definitely within this project we will have to get hands on concrete data, on concrete repositories and concrete implementations. We would be really happy to share through this group some observations, some outcomes, what really worked, where we realized that there are some real problems which should be addressed on the European level. I forgot to mention that from those 20 groups, not all of them are operating. So far, only some of them were activated. So this is also a fact we have to keep in mind for the future. Going back to the remaining activities, I think it's very important that one of the activities is focused on validation and testing of the INSPIRE components. And here we would be very interesting to see how we will be able to actually share the results from the INSPIRE validation of the resources which were mentioned, for example, by Angel. Also on our side, we are planning to make the transformation of the data to INSPIRE structure to validate this data. But also on the same time, it would be quite interesting to see on which level we will be able to execute the transformation of INSPIRE data to link data. Whether we will be able to do it on the object to on the model to ontology level, or directly on the level of concrete encodings like GML to RDF. Another point of our interest are the registers, where we are quite happy that there is quite strong movement, especially after this initial workshop in ISPRA on the beginning of the year. It's visible that various countries in Europe are paying quite high attention. Even the European Commission is spending a lot of effort to concretize this concept of registers and to show how actually they can help all those who are planning to make spatial data available. And on our side, we would like to deploy some of those existing solutions to see which best fits to needs of the project, and hopefully also give some feedback to those bodies who are driving these register implementations these days. The last point, which was also mentioned this morning on the MIG meeting, I'm very happy that there is very optimistic progress, is this work under the MIWP 19, where there is effort to explore the possibilities of improvement of the situation with understanding of existing controlled vocabularies, ontologies, and under the framework of INSPIRE. But we see this as a very urgent issue on our side, that we have some data on our servers. We want to make this data available as INSPIRE data. Okay, we have data specs, so we can do that. But on the same time, if we want to use the best available ontologies, we have doubts which ontology is really best fitting to our needs, to our use case, in this case this pilot, but we have some other use cases which we would like to somehow support with these linked data concepts. So for that reason, we have a quite big challenge to decide which existing ontology to choose, and if no one fits, how to actually generate the new one to make sure that actually we are not creating something what is already available somewhere on the internet. So these are the topics we would like to share, and what we would also appreciate from the MIC perspective. Here are the activities from the project point of view, where in the W it's a work package. 2, which is dedicated really to the analysis of user requirements and depicting of the general architecture. We would be really happy to link as much as possible to what's already available on the scene. Like, for example, there is a plan to use some outcomes of the INSPIRE registry effort, but also some other registers which are available on the scene. For the work package 3, which is really dedicated to the data modeling, we think that it would be very important for us to get some input from ongoing standardization and harmonization activities. Also, we see as a quite big challenge the question how to represent the features and the coverages as a linked data, and I was quite happy to see that coverages were somehow highlighted as one of the targets in the previous workshop for this new upcoming working group, which even we agree that from the INSPIRE point of view, the coverages are a big question mark for data producers, and what it will be from the linked data perspective. Just to conclude, for the pilots, I think these elements mentioned here are very important, just to make sure we will be able to use the metadata, content and services. But what's also very important, each INSPIRE data specification should have some use cases behind. We were wondering how some of those use cases could help to shape the pilots on our side, whether we can reuse some of those concepts on our side. But I was quite also happy to see that there are these initiatives like you mentioned today about these I forgot this working group where you mentioned that there was generated this document about the use cases who are actually based on real data. And I think definitely we will have a look on these examples, how we can be inspired by them. And there are the final two areas, mainly for the evaluation and assessment and user groups, where we would like to actually benefit from the communities behind the INSPIRE, because it's a really huge world of the stakeholders from various perspectives, governmental, private, NGOs, citizens themselves, and really just to avoid that we will be investigating something what is already on the scene. So we would like to utilize this knowledge available on the scene, communicate our outcomes of the project, and vice versa, to listen what's going on, what are the strongest requirements, needs, and where possible to bring them into the project. And plus also, as I mentioned, there are some very important activities from our point of view, like the one mentioned from the ARENA project about the RDFs and PIDs for location. So just to close this part, yeah, here are some questions which we thought would be great to see what's your opinion on them. So with that, I would like to check and be happy to hear any feedback, whether you think this shape just pictured somehow has something missing important from the MIC perspective, and vice versa, whether some of those identified issues, which of them really deserves the highest attention, because it was also visible through the MIC development that some of those 20 topics have various level of importance, and for us it would be also very useful to help us with the prioritization of the topics which we should really address through the project. So I would open the floor for any question, comments, discussion. Maybe I'm not sure if, yeah, I see some faces who were this morning on the MIG meeting, and yeah, there is still a lot of open questions. But anyway, from our side, we would be very happy to utilize this ongoing movement. So, any questions? Okay. Yeah, just a sec. Michael.
I am very ignorant about link data. Regarding INSPIRE data, there is an issue that there are no client applications or poor client application to consume INSPIRE data. Are there client application to consume RDF data?
Thanks. I wanted to ask whether how much freedom you have within the project to change your description of work, because usually that was always the problem or the issue we had with projects that were working in the, let's say, the domain of INSPIRE, is that because you have your description of work that is agreed by the project officer and so on, you need to deliver basically what is in the description of work, because that's what you're being paid for. And it's very, very difficult once the project is approved to change, let's say, that to take into account some emerging requirements from the MIG, for example. So if we had a work package to say we would need some help from this or that project to do this or that, how free would you be to rise to that request? Okay, so for the first question, I think yeah, it was a very valid point. We are also struggling with the fact that the real implementation pool is quite limited. There are some tools. Unfortunately, for the geospatial data, I think the scene is relatively quite new. I mean, there are some projects ongoing who are trying to deliver some products which can be used to transform the data, to publish the data, to visualize the data, to query the data. But from my subjective perception, the offer is quite limited. But yeah, the question is whether this market will be stronger than the market which is trying to address the expectation of the INSPIRE. That's my question also. I don't know, maybe Phil, can you help me? What's your feeling, what will be the movement? Okay, so they are arriving. So we'll see. I mean, honestly, we are now on the beginning. So we are deploying the storages, the tools which allow us to transform the relational data to link data. We are doing some investigation what kind of tools we can use to display. But at this moment, personally, I cannot show you some evidence that here is the proof that yeah, we made it. It was easy without the problems. So that's we are on the beginning. And for
There will be open.
yeah, yeah. Of course, of course.
You can use your ordnance survey map and do it.
Exactly.
So if you're in a country where the map isn't open, it's harder.
Yeah, one thing is content and one is the tool with which you provide the map. And for the question of Michael, yeah, I mean, if I want to be on the safe side, I would use your answer, but really we would be happy to utilize this time we have available to deliver something useful and meaningful. With that, at least if I may say on behalf of our part in the project, we will be happy to really open the discussion where, in which concrete way, to which, for example, activity we can discuss to provide some, for example, outcomes of the work we are doing, or to change the plan in some meaningful way that on our side we will be realistically able to do it in the time we have for the project, and on the other side it will be meaningful for the MIG to have it on the time where it will be defined by the roadmap of MIG. So yeah, I think from our side we would be very happy to bring these requirements on the project. But yeah, if someone else from the project can add.
Just very quickly, Michael. I've barely read the DAO. I know what I'm doing, and I'll make it fit somehow. One of the things one of the deliverables I have to do next month is deliver an initial data model for protected sites. Well, I think I know where I can find one of those already. So I'll have a look at all the other projects that are doing similar stuff to us, GeoNo and DPass and GeoCloud we're hearing about, and see what other people have done. make it look like something vaguely official, stick a W3C logo on it, and people will be happy, hopefully. And that's a nice deliverable. So we can make it, you know, fix it somehow.
Yeah. And really, to get to the last point from my side, I would like to share some really very short points how actually we would like to communicate for the future with the world outside, because we know that one thing is to prepare some deliverables, those who are public, to put them on the website, and really, yeah, here we've done the best we could. But for that reason, we realized that despite the fact that this topic is relatively new, there is already quite well-established set of communities outside. These communities are set up for various reasons, various purposes, and from our perspective, we would like to set up some sort of stakeholders communication platform where on the one side, internally within the project, we would like to make sure that these, not only the pilots, but all the deliverables, whether internal or public, are properly revised within this internal consortium user group. But also on the same time, we would like to set up sort of external user group option to really get as much as possible from the world outside, from you actually. And with that also I would like to highlight this this effort which was presented by Phil on the previous workshop, where there is a plan to set up this geodata on the web working group, which should be also a place through which we do hope that there will be, first of all, discussed and communicated the most critical topics to be addressed from the standardization point of view. And really what we see at this moment, what we can offer, is really to provide the space for a sort of knowledge exchange, because workshops like the one held in March, I think it makes really sense to address the right people on the right place and ask them for what they see is very important to be solved, and even better if they have some possible solutions on the table, and if these solutions are acceptable for the rest of the community, why not to use them? Another content which we would like to offer is direct geospatial content, in the sense that the content which will be made available through the partners of the project will be transformed as an INSPIRE content, but also as a link content together with the metadata. Plus, I think we would be very happy if we can also consult the model which is foreseen to be delivered in near future under the project. And I do hope personally that this model will also help us to address this question mentioned on previous workshop, actually how to help those who are currently working on a transformation of the data to INSPIRE structure, to make this data available also as a link data. And yeah, there are some other areas which I'm not going to go into the detail. And there are also some expectations which we would be happy to get from the communities outside. And without any further, there is still a lot of questions related also to the communication to the user outside, because in principle, how it works today, if you really want to target some masses, you have to have something in your hands as an offer. And then you really hope that this will be attractive enough to get some attention from the world outside, to get some sort of feedback. So also this workshop, from our perspective, is some initial step. And we would be really happy that any of you who is interested in these topics would get back in touch with us. We will try to also communicate some relevant milestones and deliverables of the project through the project website. And yeah, that's it from my side so far. If there are some questions, yeah. So maybe I give floor back to Jesus. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. I think that it's time. I have here some extra conclusion, but I believe that they have been already pointed out by Martin. So, if I have to summarize the idea, please feel free to contact us because we are working on these issues. We can show something, but we are already learning and we are already working. So if you need some information, we can send to you, but also if we can send us some information on some good advice, it will be more than welcome. So please visit our webpage, our Twitter profile, and also I am involved also in the AP7 call of GEOS in several groups on behalf of the project, of course. So if you are also involved in these GEO calls, please feel free to send me an email and contact me. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Jan? Yeah, because
Yeah, please.
Okay, I just don't want to push too much.